Did you know culture is really a control system? Culture. It's actually an informal control system that is shared by every member of a community. Culture. It orients our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions around what is considered important and what is expected in different situations. Some people see culture as a source of virtue, and others see culture as an influence of corruption and fraud. Culture. It's sort of like the wind. We cannot see it, but we see its effects. When culture is invisible, it is generally known by symbols, stories, and actions of leaders. There are many different areas in which culture affects how you think, how you feel, how you act. There are microcultures for organizations and families. Yet these exist within macrocultures that influence entire countries or regions. What foods people eat, how they view authority, aggression, women, and time are just a few of the many ways culture is expressed in a community. A community's cultural pride can be helpful to bring people together, to work for a common purpose. However, cultural pride can be negative. It can have negative consequences. Cultural pride can breed what is called ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism. Now, that's a big word, but it has a very simple meaning. Ethnocentrism is the feeling of one group that they are superior to another. It's an abuse of pride, the sense of being superior. It leads to conflict among communities, and each believes they are more important than the other. And this conflict, it leads to competition and bad feelings between people in different communities. And while the culture of your country has values that make it distinct from other countries, every local community and family might not share the same natural culture in exactly the same way. One challenge with worldview is when micro and macro cultures conflict. For instance, how would you handle situations if your family had an aggressive culture or saw a woman as equal to men, but your greater community might be more passive and nurturing, or see women as second-rate citizens? What if your family was willing to take risks, but your community often preferred safety and certainty? Now, resolving conflicts among the cultures you share often challenges your worldview. It can create confusion or even rebellion in you. Now, while your social identity helps you form a sense of belonging, your personal identity, that's how you see yourself. Yourself, separate from others and the image you project to those in your community. Social and personal identities often compete, where one will dominate the other. Here, let me give you a simple story to illustrate social and personal identity and how they work within people's perspectives of what is true about themselves. I'd like you to imagine a little orphan girl. She lived in the slums of the city. She felt abandoned. She was alone and had to find ways to feed and clothe herself from the garbage heaps around the town. Now, everyone who lived in the slums knew how to survive and to get their needs met as an outcast of society. But one day, a rich man who lived in the mansion on top of a hill above the city, he was moved with compassion for that little orphan girl and chose to adopt her. Thus, she came to live with him in the mansion on the top of the hill above the city. She had all new clothes. She could feast at the rich man's banquet table. She had it made. However, while the girl knew in her head that she was adopted, she still felt like an orphan. She identified more with the street people than as a child of the rich man. She actually felt uncomfortable in her new identity because she still saw herself as a destitute orphan. Instead of receiving the provisions and privileges of her new father, daily she would go back down into the city and look for food and clothes in the garbage heaps. Now, although she had been given a new identity, she still viewed herself as an orphan. Now, let me ask you this question. Why do you think the girl could not feel, think, or act as an adopted child of the kind, rich man?